The first line of a spirit portrait. Many students pause at exactly the same moment when they begin a spirit portrait, and you might find this has happened to you. You have the paper in front of you, the pencils in your hand, and suddenly you begin to wonder where the first line should go. Should I begin with the eyes? Should I draw the outline of the face? Should I draw the outline of the hair perhaps? Or should I just wait until the image feels clearer before placing anything on the page? Or should I just wait for spirit to tell me what to draw? In this spirit art reflection today, we're going to explore the role of the very first line in a spirit portrait and why the first mark on the page is often far less dramatic than many students imagine. If you'd like to, you might gently pick up your pencil while you listen to this recording today. You don't need to complete a portrait today, but you might simply place a few line shapes, curves on the page while listening. Just simply doodle and observe how your drawing begins to develop as you draw and listen. When a spirit portrait begins, the first line is rarely a bold or confident mark. More often it's something very light and faint, and so you might find that you put a gentle, faint line just somewhere on the page. There are many experienced spirit artists that actually begin their drawing really softly at first, allowing the pencil to move across the paper without pressing down too firmly. It also varies if you are using charcoal or you're using pastel. And in a later episode, I will speak about how to use charcoal and how to use pastel. But for now, let us talk about just simply holding a HB pencil. And you might begin lightly sketching the rough position of the head on the page. You're not trying to be perfect at this stage, but you're simply placing a soft oval or a curved line to establish where the face may sit on the page. Some people like to draw an egg shape upside down. And at this stage, a line may change several times. So as you begin to draw, as your arm begins to move, allow your arm to move with the pencil and roughly just draw a few oval shapes. You may draw it lightly at first, but then you'll start to adjust the curve of the face slightly higher or lower as you notice how the shape of the face is developing. There's no need to overthink at this stage. There's no need to feel that you've got to be perfect, because the early stage of the drawing is often exploratory rather than being precise. And I know some students prefer to begin with the general outline of the head. Some students begin with the hair. Some students begin with an eye. It really doesn't matter how you begin. It's just having the confidence to begin. Now, for example, you might place two faint horizontal marks where you sense the eyes may sit, simply to establish their position within the face on the page. And from there, the drawing slowly begins to organise itself. The position of the eyes may influence the placement of the nose, for example. The curve of the jaw may slightly adjust as the proportions become clearer to you. But what matters most is not choosing the perfect first line. What matters is allowing the drawing to begin. Many students delay the first line because they feel the portrait must already be clear in their mind before the pencil touches the paper. But in spirit portraiture, the drawing itself can often help reveal what the portrait is going to be. And as the pencil moves, the image begins to develop gradually, and you may notice that the head shape becomes clearer as you define and refine the outline, or that the position of the eyes that you've drawn begins to feel the guided balance of the face. Now, this is one reason experienced spirit artists often work lightly in the early stages of the portrait drawing, because light lines, faint lines, allows the drawing to evolve without the pressure of committing to a final decision too soon. So you might think of the first line that you draw is like the opening note in a piece of music. It does not contain the entire melody, but it begins the movement that allows the rest of the music to unfold. In the same way, the first line simply begins the conversation between the artist and the page. From that first mark, the portrait gradually develops through your observation and your adjustment. And if you're drawing while listening right now, you might want to experiment with placing a very light line on the page, perhaps the soft outline of the head or the gentle indication of where you want the eyes to sit. Rather than trying to perfect it immediately, I want you to simply observe how the drawing begins to respond to that first mark. Now your pencil may hover just slightly over the paper, but it's in that moment sometimes for some students, when they do, several thoughts can appear at once. They may wonder, or you even may wonder, whether the drawing will actually work. You might even question whether the impression you are sensing is even correct. Or you might even feel a small pressure to prove something to yourself, especially if you're hoping the portrait will resemble someone in spirit. Now I want you to know that these feelings are extremely common. In fact, that many experienced spirit artists still recognize that same moment of hesitation before beginning a new portrait. And you will find there's many students still wondering if they will actually draw someone that the viewer or the recipient will be able to recognize. Part of this hesitation comes from the simple human desire to get things right. Another part comes from the uncertainty that often accompanies intuitive work, because spirit portraiture involves both artistic skill and subtle perception, and students sometimes feel they must wait until the image is completely clear before beginning. But the truth I want you to know is that clarity often appears after the drawing has started. So you must make the first line first in order to declare what the certainty of what your drawing is, simply meaning give it a go and see what happens. More often, it is simply a gentle beginning. And so as you draw, as you put faint lines on your page, you will start to notice something interesting happens. Your pressure begins to ease. Your mind becomes more focused on observing the drawing rather than worrying about whether it will succeed. And this is why many teachers encourage students to place the first line lightly and without expectation. I know I do. I teach a lot of my spirit art students. There's no need to be perfect. You only need to begin the process. And over time, as your experience grows, that moment of hesitation becomes less intimidating. You begin to recognize it's all simply part of the creative process. So I want you to have a small pause before allowing your drawing to unfold. And as you continue exploring portrait drawing with me, I want you to recognize that the portrait that you draw will begin to take its own form and its own shape. And in the next reflection, we will explore another stage in the spirit portrait process. Until then, as always, allow the pencil to move gently and notice what begins to emerge.